Hi, Matt.
Hi, Jean.
How you doing?
I am well.
Good. Good to see you.
You as well.
Hey, can you hear background noise? I have an air conditioner in the window. Can you hear that?
No.
Nope. Awesome. Okay.
I have a fan.
Thanks.
Can you hear that?
Nope. Well, I can't hear. I can only hear voices. Hi, everybody.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi, everybody.
How are you?
How you doing, Beth?
Hi, Elizabeth. Hey, Dan.
Hey, everyone.
Hey, Dan.
Hi there.
Everyone's staying cool. It's pretty hot out.
It's pretty hot, is right. Even worse in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Are they having a heat wave in the Pacific Northwest?
Oh, yeah, it's horrible.
Oh, man. Yeah.
110, 100, yeah.
Michelle just said she's going to be about 5 minutes late and she's going to have her camera off just because she had some medical stuff. And Betsy's going to join us without a camera because she's not able to have a video.
I'm here. I'm just off camera.
Thank you.
And Peter is rubbing his eyes.
Peter is not in a car.
Not in a car.
He's not in a car at this time.
Part of Peter will be played.
He could go out at any moment and pick up one. of his
Peter, we're
kids.
waiting for you to go on the move.
I think I'm good tonight.
Yeah.
I'll let Betsy do that.
And I think Matt will have everyone but Daphne tonight. Did you hear from anyone else?
No, I did not.
Okay.
So what happened to our presser closed? Did that?
Well, Daphne wasn't here wasn't available to provide the update.
We're going to go with the 8th on that?
Okay, so we're still going to do the 8th. Okay.
I think so, for 1 hour, right?
Mm-hmm. 6 to 7. Keep it to an hour, short and sweet and thorough.
6 to 7. Okay.
On the 8th, that is?
Yeah,
July 8th.
I'll get that out tomorrow so everyone has it in their calendar.
Thanks.
I think we have everyone here. Michelle,
No, I was late. What is this? I have it in my calendar, but I couldn't remember what it was for.
negotiations discussion.
Thank you.
We're going to try to do them both tonight, but then Daphne couldn't be here.
Right. And is Michelle coming?
Michelle will be a little bit late. She's joining.
Okay.
So should we start, Matt? Since I think we're just going to wait for Michelle and she'll join us in a couple minutes.
Yes.
You ready?
Yeah, let's officially start the meeting. Yes, I'm ready.
Matt, should I just start reading?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Am I muted? Yes, I'm ready.
Oh, okay, great. Welcome to this public meeting of the Princeton Board of Education. The board is an elected unpaid group of 10 citizens who set policy and make decisions of educational, financial, and personnel matters for the Princeton Public Schools on behalf of all residents. We are always pleased when members of the community attend our meetings. The board and the school district operate under applicable New Jersey laws and under regulations of the New Jersey State Board of Education. Each meeting includes an opportunity for those attending to comment on items on the published agenda and other matters of interest to them. The board reserves the right to limit the time allotted to public participation. Law limits discussion of individual personnel and confidential matters. We desire that our meetings provide useful opportunities for communication between the board and the community. So thank you for attending.
As required under the Open Public Meeting Act, NJSA 10-4-6 et sequentia, adequate notice was given for calling this meeting. It was authorized by the Board of Education and forwarded to the municipal clerk, Princeton Packet, and the Trenton Times on January 6, 2021. It was also distributed to the schools and others on the standard distribution list. The board reserves the right to enter into executive session during all meetings of the Board of Education. Board Policy 2230, recording devices, requires that we inform those attending this virtual Zoom meeting that the proceedings are being recorded. This meeting is not being live streamed. Public members who wish to make comment at the appropriate time as noted in the agenda or added by the presiding officer shall, quote unquote, raise their hand virtually at the bottom of the Zoom screen. Once called upon, the member of the public will be requested to unmute themselves by clicking the mute button at the bottom of the Zoom screen. The representative of the sending district is authorized to vote on such matters that affect sending district students or affect the governance of the Princeton Public Schools, as more specifically designated in NJSA 18A 38.8.1. In the event that this statute is amended, the law should take precedence over this bylaw. Sending district votes pertaining to personnel actions refer to high school, central administrative, and district-wide staff only. Votes otherwise are considered abstentions.
Thank you, Mr. Bolden. Would you like to call the roll?
I would. Beth Baron,
Here.
Betsy Baglia,
Here, I am on video, but I'm here.
Debbie
Sorry,
Bronfeld.
I'm off video, but I'm here.
Thank you, Beth.
I'm here.
Dan Dart,
Here.
Jean Durbin,
Present.
Susan Cantor,
Yeah.
Brian McDonald,
Present.
Peter Katz.
Here.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. We do not have a closed session this evening, so we will go straight into our short agenda for this evening. And I just want to thank my colleagues and the staff for making time on this hot summer night to come and have a meeting and to talk about maintenance projects. So who would like to lead that discussion?
I think I was going to start off by going over the presentation. We have, everyone knows, our facilities director, Dave Harding, usually not at our meetings, but he is here at our virtual meeting tonight, and we'll be going through this together, along with any, assistance from Dr. Galasso, wide open to questions. So I'm going to start sharing the presentation that we had started to go over in committee last Thursday. So we've been talking about, this is one of the goals of our district, and particularly the areas, one of the major areas that I oversee is facilities. We've been making, I think, great strides. Of course, the pandemic has certainly been a challenge for us all school districts alike. Going to read a brief executive summary kind of where we're going. We've begun the process of putting together a capital planning inventory of items that require attention, determining when the work must be done, and estimating, of course, how much it will cost. At this time, the only way for a district of our socioeconomic status to get assistance from the state for capital programs is through debt service aid. On paper, the state funds 40% of a district's eligible, quote unquote eligible. They review everything that we're going to submit. We'll talk about that. Principal and interest. So the principal and interest on debt payments that they've approved on capital renovations such as roofs, siding, HVAC build-outs, or anything deemed necessary to deliver an education to our children. There are certain things that they do push back on, such as turf replacements, but even those can be funded at times through debt service aid. I experienced that in Hillsborough. It's not a given though. A lot of times the argument is that, and it's true, gym classes are delivered out on the turf. And when you have a turf field, there's certainly a lot more activities that the school district can host than compared to grass fields. I just want to make the point that it's can be a little arbitrary at times with this process. So the state currently prorates this 40%, as they do with certain other areas that we talk about a lot, or you hear from me a lot, at least on an annual basis, such as like extraordinary aid. So they prorate that also to fit the state's budget. So when you prorate to 40% to 85%, you get the possible maximum 34% currently of debt service aid. And that depends on the eligible costs. We wound up at about 25% on the current 2018 referendum that is being worked on in the district. So that's really kind of what I wanted to lead off. So capital referendum. So what we're talking about, so with this major maintenance referendum, so we're talking about it now, is really to start to look at replacement of extremely important aspects of our buildings, such as the roofs. If the roofs leak, the students get wet. We can't have that. So we do have a number of our roofs are approaching 26 years old, put in around 1995. And then we have a next group of roofs that are going to be about 17 this summer. I just want to also talk a little bit about the nature of, this capital planning work that we're doing. We also have made great strides in auditing our rooftop equipment. Some of this had been started with the energy audits that started a couple years ago. But that equipment also, wears out. We have quite a bit that's approaching that 17 to 20 to 25 year life. So we'll look at that going forward. Also down the road, we will at some point, as it's also about the same age, the high school HVAC equipment will eventually need to be replaced. We don't know what that would look like yet. Replacing the guts of univents or all new univents, that would right now be approximately $20,000 approximate number per classroom. So, these are all the kind of things that we're looking at going forward. You can see here, so we're starting to plan it, these things I'm talking about. We're looking at the top is so the roofs, this 2015 means they're 20 years old and the warranty expires. Dave was talking a little bit about that. I don't know if you wanted to comment about that. So the warranty is really a warranty on the roof materials only. So generally speaking, if we have a leak, unless there was some, we found there to be a defect in the roofing materials itself, which is rarely the case, then that would be covered. However, generally speaking, the roof leaks can be caused by just the wear and tear. Now, those roofs are already out of warranty, 6 years. We know that Littlebrook's roof is in the worst shape. As with anything, with most things, I should say, with school districts and anything that involves the state approvals, referendums in particular, you really have to, at the earliest, we have to be ready to go 6 months out in time frame. So it takes a lot of planning. We've looked at a lot of different things so far. We'll be looking at more over the next year relating to our facilities planning and some of the work that was completed with our planning contractor, consulting company, I should say. So, but we're talking about here, so we have highlighted the roofs that were installed around 1995, which hit 4 out of our 6 buildings. So some of the other really things that are failing right now, there's some gutter fascia work at Johnson Park, and then siding at Littlebrook and Riverside. Dave, did you want to talk a little bit about the nature of the siding at the 2 schools?
Yeah, I think in those 2 schools in Littlebrook and Riverside, we have what most people are familiar with. It's T111, it's called. It was probably the least expensive product you could put on a building for siding. And in some cases, it's just completely rotting. Some of that is due to gutter issues and so forth, but most of it is just over time. There's actually a stone sill or stool, they call it, below the windows. And when the water hits that, it splashes up and it does get behind that in some cases, which it has. So this is just to go through and replace all the areas that have T111 on those two schools. And it wouldn't be with T111, we'd go with a little, like a hardy board, or like a concrete type siding, something that would stand up a lot better.
It'll look a lot better too, right, Dave?
Yeah. Yep.
And there was, as you may have remember, our superintendent, he could actually stick his finger through parts of the siding. I think that was at Riverside when we were out there in the fall, early in the fall.
And Dave, can I just ask one question about the material? T111 is a relatively low grade processed wood material, as I understand it. The hardy plank is a cementatious product,
Right.
which wouldn't that be significantly better from a fire safety standpoint?
Yes. Yep.
And so that's another positive.
Thanks, Brian.
For the siding, can I also ask, is it, I mean, how many sides of the buildings is it? A lot?
It's probably, I mean, we have square footage numbers. I don't have them in front of me, but I would almost say almost every side of, like the courtyards, definitely in
Okay.
Little Brook and Riverside are probably completely T111, all four sides, maybe three sides. And then there's sections along like the back of Riverside, all along that whole playground side is all T111. The other side by the gardens is T111. Usually like the gymnasiums, the all-purpose rooms, those are masonry or brick.
Mhm.
And, but the main offices are all windows with T111 through them.
Okay, and is this work you could do while school is open or not? Just curious.
No, I don't. I think it'd be kind of disruptive to the classes. I mean, it's all got to be torn off and tacked on in some way, shape, or form. So yeah, that would have to be done during a summer or non-class time period.
As the roofs also need to be done during the summer.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we also have, which we're working on getting some estimates. We have some masonry work at the high school. When you have a brick face or stone building, there is periodic maintenance that's required. There was significant repointing done. It was the last 2012, about 10 years ago, I believe, 2014, 2012. There was some, but we need more work done. We've isolated. Last fall, we started in earnest with some adventures up on the roof and a almost what Dave kind of calls a little bit of a forensic engineer who goes out with a real solid. He's got a structural background, I believe, Dave, and he helps.
Yeah, he's a PE, structural engineering, but his specialty is like forensic or you know, finding out where the breakdown is in an envelope system. When we get water or rain, he's also done underwater work. He's worked on the Twin Towers for some of the evaluations there. He's worked for Rutgers quite a bit. I think I said that in the stadium. And he does underwater work as well. He does, you know, scuba diving evaluation stuff. So he's very detailed, very good. He lives in Princeton, and has a, you know, love of the high school because it's a beautiful building. And we've had him out to look at it. There's some of the ornate work that's on that building is most of the caulking or mortar joints are deteriorating and we're getting water behind some of that.
Mhm.
And in some cases, we've had pieces of concrete that are cracking or falling. So we've gone out and remediated any of those areas temporarily. But we need to start really looking at the pointing and caulking on the coping stones, the tower, the turrets, you know, those kind of things.
Right, so important work. And then we have so we've talked about a few times, there were some classrooms that were left out of the HVAC referendum that the last school is being done this summer. It was started the day after school got out on the 23rd. Johnson Park. So that is the last of the 5 schools. So we installed Airedales at the middle school, Princeton Middle School. Riverside was the first year, and then we did Community Park in Little Brook and the middle school last summer. And Johnson Park is being worked on now, but there were some classrooms left out of the, most notably the libraries at Little Brook and Community Park. We bid, we opened May 25th. And the bids were not, were over our budget. So we reissued them to be opened this Thursday, with an alternate bid in there for some of the rooftops. So it's likely that there would be, even if the bids came in favorable and could get completed this summer, there would be a little bit of that money left over for a couple of the classrooms that were designed to have rooftops as opposed to Airedales. And then.
Wait, I'm completely confused.
Mhm.
I know we had the bid and we rejected it, but you're putting this in for this next round?
Yeah, it's a contingency at this point. We don't know what's going to happen on Thursday and what that'll look like, but we'll clearly have a better idea as we move through, past Thursday when we open the bids. We won't know. Public bidding is always a lot of fun. Joking.
So you're saying if we don't get a bid we like or we can accept, we might group this with something else in the future?
Well, we would put this off and then hopefully get back 34% of it if we did the work next summer. Now, of course, we lose out on the benefits of the cooling in the fall, but that was going to be, due to the tight time frame, a little difficult for the rooftop work anyway. We were going to have to get everything ready to go and then drop the units this fall when they're available. COVID has certainly stretched many manufacturers tightly. Last summer, if you remember, we had quite a few delays on the rooftop equipment.
No, but I guess what I'm asking, isn't this 600,000 already accounted for somewhere else?
It's dependent or contingent upon the bids that are due to come in Thursday at 1 p.m.
So we authorized the payment for this 600,000 out of current capital reserve.
Correct.
If we had accepted those bids, we would have used capital reserve for that project. We still may, if you're saying if we get bids that are, really good and we want to move forward quickly. But if we don't accept the bids and we decide to wait, it could be lumped in with this larger referendum where we would get up to 34% back from the state.
Okay, thank you. That's where I got lost. I didn't remember the capital reserve part. Thank you.
You're welcome. So that's what we'd be looking at. And we're going to go through. So this is a little bit at the time frame we'd be looking at. So it's a tight time frame in the sense that we really need the submissions to go in. We have to submit for to get our PEC letter from the SDA DOE is the preliminary eligible cost. That's what we were talking about earlier. What determines what percentage back we're going to get from the state. So we would have to submit that by the 29th. So it was one of the reasons why after last Thursday, we decided to have this meeting to start the discussion in earnest with the whole group at large, get more people involved, the full board, et cetera, et cetera. So we're, and that would be for a referendum that would be the 4th Tuesday. So there are 4 referendum dates by statute that occur throughout the year. September, so go in order here, September, November, December, January, and March. November, obviously being election day. So that's the 5th, and that's always in play, so to speak. March gets to be very tight for to get work done in a summer period. Even January, we would want to have the 2 or possibly 3 roofs that we were looking to do in the summer of 2022. We would look to have those specs ready to go, right after that date, so we could get them out and get bids from the widest selection of contractors. And we have
Matt,
yes.
before you go on to the next section, I guess I Wonder if I could ask just a few questions related to the timetable and the
Absolutely.
dollars that you showed us. Maybe at a high level, you could just tell us a few things about the timing. For example, the numbers you've put in a 25% contingency on the, I'll just look at one line, the 2015 roofs, which are the roofs where the warranties expired in 2015, and then a further 10% contingency. At what point, I know we want conservative numbers, but my first question is, at what point do we start really dialing in the numbers, and saying, this is the exact roof specification, this is how it will be pitched, it will be solar ready, and there might be replacement rooftop HVAC units on a section of the roof. How specific, when do we get very specific, and when do we start, for lack of a better term, dialing in the numbers?
I think we get specific pretty quickly as we dig into the submission to the state.
The first submission?
We get in pretty quickly after that, we want to have as good an estimate as possible.
And can you remind me, since we started looking at a page with numbers that are, depending on one's perspective, they may be perceived as just the right size or large. With state aid, once upon a time that reduced the size of the amount of bonding that a district would go out with. Is that still the case, or is it hypothetically, if we just looked at your 7.6 million or $8.4 million number, if we felt that it was important to move forward with that, would that potentially be a referendum question of $8.4 million with an $8.4 million bond with state aid applied to the debt service, which would benefit the taxpayers, or would it reduce the size of the bond?
No, we still have to issue the full amount of and this would be the principal. We would have to, we will be estimating. I'm already reached out preliminarily, our financial advisor, Brian, who you worked with, Brian. Well, we all worked with our most recent debt rating review back in the spring. Look at preliminary numbers, forecast that out over an estimated time period. We had talked to potentially, typically we do 20-year bonds here, which is very good, conservative. Generally speaking, no issues there. I love it. We want to be fiscally prudent. And if we know that a roof, starts to wear out after 20 to 25 years, it's always better to go 20 than 30. So many of the things that we've talked about a little bit tonight, things like HVAC, generally, you don't get 30 years out of. So I'm a big fan of 20-year bonding, which we have done here in the past. So that's been positive in my mind. But you would have to bond for, it would be more than 8.4 million because you add in the interest. And then the state each year, we have to make sure that once they get our debt service numbers, we have to consistently check them. And actually with our state aid reports that come back from the state, where we get the preliminary one in February, the Thursday following the fourth Tuesday in February, which is a statutory date, it shows the debt service aid in those numbers. So we get it back and then it goes against, it reduces essentially the net cost to the district.
I see Jean has her hand up, but I'd like to just ask one last question. Is that okay, Jean?
Sure.
The timetable you've presented, you said it's tight. So this is a question about the actual approval process. In the press, as recently as yesterday and today, they've talked about changing the department that oversees this. My understanding is that there have been some challenges in getting approvals. What is our current assessment of the likelihood that the state would be able to deliver on their end for us to meet these timetables?
That's very pertinent question, Brian, and it's timely. There has been issues this last year. The state did not replace people who are retiring, and just kind of, yes, it's been a challenge. And it potentially could be a challenge with these letters. There is a statutory timeframe for them to get back to us. So we're hoping that it should be reasonable. They are supposedly catching up also. They have hired more people to do the work. So I'm optimistic.
Jean, did you have a question?
Thanks. My question was how the state decides, who decides how and when. So Brian got at the first part for me, but this is my first go around here with this issue. And I wondered if you could explain a little bit, if it's not going to take too much time, how the state arrives at the decision that they make, whether we get 25% or 34% back on the dollar.
Well, in theory, in practice, it's tough to say in theory or practice, but it's statute driven. But I pointed out one of the areas where they can waiver. We have slate roofs at the high school. So if we were going to put in a referendum, it's hypothetical, to replace that slate, they would not fund that at a high percentage because it would be viewed as excessive. I'm not an expert into the machinations of the SDA, but it is based on statute and what is eligible to provide an education. I think pools can be something that they push back on. I'm just making a note to myself. I have to go back and look at what they deem to be non-educational. Oh, so I know. Okay, so one of the other major areas are, so we should be pretty good shape on these type of things. Roofs, they don't argue with, siding. When you're doing new build, anything, so they deemed, I believe, part of our high school build out, because it was increasing the footprint, adding a second floor. If we're building out a building, they fixed that rate at, I believe, $143 per square foot, which we know is, and that's a 20-year-old number now. I think it was 2000 or 2001. They set that number. So then they would prorate that's what they would base your funding on in that particular case. So it's a whole list of those kind of issues at the SDA. And I can get a clearer and more detailed answer from our architect.
And I have one more question, if I could. When the question goes on the ballot for the voters, are we able to frame it with the benefits that we get if we move now? Are we able to say we'll get 34% back on the dollar when we frame the question on the ballot?
I don't know if we'll be able to say 34% back, but that's a good question. I've started dialogue with McManaman, Scotland, and Bauman on those types of issues. The question part would be planned for around our approval around our November board meeting to get it ready in time. Technically speaking, you only need 18 days to get it to the Board of Elections, but that's not long enough. And we also need to answer to our stakeholders in the district.
Dan, I think you have a question.
So, I have a couple of questions around, timing and costs and so forth. Just to get the submission to the state by the 29th of July, given that this is the 29th of June and we have July 4th weekend and all that, seems to me a Herculean effort. And, for the architect, to use Brian's term, to dial in all this stuff. And, we ended up in the current referendum underestimating the HVAC by a significant amount. And we ended up with a contractor for our two largest projects who would take advantage of, any inconsistency for change orders. So I'm concerned about the amount of time between now and July 29th to put together a quality submission. Number one. My second concern is the burden it places on you, Matt, as BA, and Dave as head of facilities, given that our current largest project around the high school, $10 million, 40% of our existing referendum is, it's got some challenges in terms of timing and so forth. So, I worry how, we add another thing on your plate and then try to do a quality submission, in less than 30 days over July 4th weekend. So I don't know how we address all those things.
So I think that a lot of the work has been done. Remember, we started analyzing the state of our roofs and other things last fall. So I understand what you're saying about that. But I think that we have time to get it done. We have to plan ahead to get work done. I'll tell you that it's more stressful for Dave, myself, the outgoing soup, and now the incoming soup, to get complaints, of leaky classrooms. Not good stuff. I lose sleep over things like that. Last fall, when we were trying to get our kids back in, it was not a pretty sight. There was, which I would like to think Dave and I would have been kicking and screaming. There was, $550,000 of roof work taken out, and I'm not saying that in any way. I don't, as you guys know, I talk about it all the time. I'm not a point and blame type of person. We all are in everything together, but this type of work is completely necessary. The Little Brook roof is, as you'll see when we go through further in here, and I'll just scroll forward real quick, just to show you guys this is what it looked like this year. We had some patching done, but patching on a roof that's significantly outside of its lifespan is very difficult. Also, there's difference between rain and snow leaks being the worst because it has, with the melt, has a longer period, and then the ice wedges underneath the areas that need to be replaced. So I do think that, although we need to get this thing quickly, I don't think it will necessarily add to our work. It will add to our work next summer, when we're also looking to oversee our contractors and make sure the roofs get installed properly. But that's it's part of our job.
And just to follow, if I may follow up.
I may have missed one of your questions there, Dan.
But Dave, did you?
No, the other way of looking at this is with Little Brook in particular, and CP as well. These are kind of emergent situations, and we're not just talking about roof leaks. Roof leaks also deteriorate the structure. The decking begins to rust. Structural steel would begin to rust, and these have been going on for a while. So it's important to get these through the hopper to the point where we can start moving quickly on them, and also take the benefit of the financing. And just like Matt said, if we get, this is future work, it's only a year off or so, but I think it's important we forge onward, and we have done quite a bit of back work on all of this. And I don't want to speak for Matt, but I think we've got a lot of the data that we need for the applications at this point.
Okay. And just one quick follow-up. So what you're recommending is that January 2022 total, which is the 8412, which should be submitted to the state and with a potential referendum in January of 22. And that these other numbers down below would come at a later time. Is that correct, Matt?
Yes. So those roofs were installed around 2004. So, would naturally be part of future referendum. I think we really want to start to, to educate ourselves as administrators, fellow administrators, board members that are here that will come on, how important it is to do, these standard types of capital replacement referendums and work that into the overall financial picture. We hope that with the debt that's falling off, we want to keep, a ceiling. We want to keep that as a ceiling, and if with proper planning, and I think that that's completely reasonable. But we also want to make sure that our our students have adequate facilities and our teachers aren't getting dripped on. It's the roof is just about an important piece of a building as you can get.
Can I make a suggestion? I see that a number of my colleagues have their hand up, but we haven't gone through the full presentation. Do you guys want to go through all your slides maybe first? Would that be okay? And then we ask more questions. That might be helpful.
I'm good with that. I think that that's a great idea. As long as the rest of the board is.
I know Brian and Susan, you have your hands up. Can you wait? Okay.
So I'll let Dave take the lead as we roll through here.
I thought you were just gonna roll through it like a movie, silent film.
Well, we'll have a little bit of discussion. So the different types of roofs we're talking about. Generally speaking, the white is what we'd be looking to go with moving forward, I believe. Dave?
Right, possibly the TPO, maybe it's a little more environmentally friendly.
The
It seems to
TPO.
be what people are doing, the green thing that people are doing lately.
I
But
believe,
that's-
I
this
also
is-
want to look at the cost of, the cost on a TPO is slightly higher than the EPDM, correct?
Might be a little bit, yeah. And that's the T111, you can see it in this photo, well, it's a better shot here, that's,
This one right here,
yeah,
the tan, right?
right.
So we've gone through and documented the each aerial picture of the roof. That's Little Brook. This one, you can see some pooling of water around the edge. Some of our older roofs at the high school, you can also see that. That's a sign that it's starting to give out. Not when I say give out, I don't mean structurally give out. That's the actual roofing material. Dave, if I
A
say-
lot of these, yeah, a lot of these are what they call tapered insulation or tapered ISO. And what happens is if you get water under them, then that ISO board starts to collapse and it just adds to the ponding. The longer the water ponds on, the funny thing about rubber roofs or TPO, the seams are what are vulnerable to water. So if you have ponding, that's a bad thing. So the pitch has to be right. So these roofs dry off quickly after a storm.
we went over this. These were at one point last fall, I believe, the isolated spots, either or it might have been during the snow after the melt, during the melt. I can't remember which time. We took a couple different one of these. We reached out to all the administrators in the district and head custodians. And here's where each roof is mapped with the age.
Right, so that's the 1995 is the darker red. And the 2004 roofs are the, it looks like pink. But there's a good amount of Little Brook, you can see, and that's from 1995. It did get some patches and repairs, I thought, was that 2013 or something, Matt? But it doesn't do anything for the membrane. The membrane itself is just starting to really give out.
So
And we're 5 years past the warranty or?
Well, 20, it'd be about 26
6 years,
years old
yeah.
this summer. So
Yeah.
we'll be looking at next year, 27 years. Flat roofs, generally speaking, can be very problematic. They built a new high school in Montgomery about 13 years ago, and the roof was leaking since day one. But that's another whole nother discussion. Flat roofs can be, so they don't have as long a lifespan. Community parks, similar. Isolating the
Yeah, some of the green stuff, the APR, the cafeteria, those
Going
canopies,
further.
that's relatively new roofing,
Mhm.
2012, 2014.
But the heart of the building here is 1995. Johnson Park. This isn't well, this actually isn't newer. It's just a longer lab. Curious, they said well, we'll see here. This is a not flat roof, not tin. What is the
The
roof?
standing seam metal roof. It has its issues with caulking. The skylights are kind of getting sunburdened, so we may need to look at those. The fibers are showing they've darkened quite a bit from the sun.
Mhm.
But otherwise, the roofs are, they need a little maintenance, a little repair, but they're in fairly good shape.
Yeah, right. So there's no 95 roofs. Well, these are 91, but it's a much longer lifespan, generally speaking,
Right.
at JP. Riverside.
Riverside, we had 2 water leaks. That's it. So the Riverside's in good shape.
Newer roof, less leaks. Is there a correlation there, Dave? Positive correlation. The middle school.
Yeah, very
School
little
is in decent shape,
concerns.
as you can see, mostly newer.
And then the high school.
Than the high school.
So you can show them the one roof that we're in the process of trying to do, right? The one above the vertical white section. Oh, yeah, tell them about that.
Well, this is the back side of the front side that faces the wonderful courtyard that everyone loves so much. The back side is a shingle roof that when Dave and I went on the roof last fall, we saw to the plywood, was down to the plywood in numerous spots across here. This was one of the pieces that, so we're going to have this shingling reshingled and plywood roofing material replaced if need be, which I know there's going to be a fair amount of that here.
And the vertical section too, right? That right there down. Yeah.
This
So the
is
back
slate on
side of that.
the back
side of
side,
that.
right? The back side. The front side is the slate.
Yep.
We're going to be assessing that too going forward, so we can make sure we can. I heard different estimates, but if you keep a slate roof well maintained, I mean, I've heard people say, is that right, Dave? 200 years? I mean, someone said it. I don't necessarily know if that's true or not.
No, I always heard 100, but
That's what I heard, but someone said. I have to verify that. The old gym. That's not the white one, right?
no.
It's this one, right?
Yep.
This roof is definitely beyond its lifespan. So we'll have to get that done.
Yeah, we've had some floor damage with that, the basketball floor, and then that gets expensive to repair. We were fortunate enough to get an insurance claim the last time it happened, but I don't think they're going to let us do that twice. So we're trying to hustle and get that taken care of.
So this pink is all 1995 roof.
Or the dark color.
The dark, yes. The what color is that? I don't know. Reddish.
Look backwards.
So this is going back looking at some of the. This is
That's JP.
JP,
That's the
right?
gutters and the fascia board. The gutters, all the seams are kind of shot, and they're starting to create a lot of damage to the.
you see how the
fascia.
water goes down here and then it.
Right. So that we're just gonna replace the gutters, and then just sand and refinish or paint or stain the wood. It's not the TPO. That's pretty significant wood that's there.
Mhm,
Not the T111, I should say.
mhm. This is Riverside, right?
Yeah, I think so. They all start to look the same after a while, but yeah. Up
I think
close.
this is the T111, right?
Right.
Oh, that's one of the corridors connecting those long corridors at Riverside, correct?
Right. No, that's.
No?
I
We have to-
believe that's JP. That's JP with the fascia boards that way.
We talked about the methodology of the work. And it's where we costed out the areas. The architect and Dave worked on this extensively.
Yeah, we went out, measured square footage of all the areas, broke it down, and then put the estimates with it. So you can see the first year and second. The oldest is the first column, the middle is the second. So you see those two numbers there, and then the third is the latter. And they did that for each school, and there should be a summary at the bottom of that.
Mhm.
Here.
We want to go back to questions. I can't see. Let me.
I think Susan had her hand up first.
Yes, thank you. A couple questions. On the high school, because you mentioned that the work needs to be done in the summer and perhaps students can't be in the building, but obviously we use the high school a lot for different programs in the summer. If we break it in parts, can you use parts of the building as other parts are having roofs replaced? Or
Yeah, I
would
mean,
we-
we'll have to figure out how we can phase it. I mean, you know, right now we're looking at that one gym, which
Right.
could certainly be evacuated.
So, because obviously that's part of, with the high school, we don't want to lose use of the high school for an entire summer. Secondly, once this work is done, we're comfortable that we can explore our solar options or be doing that as the work is being done.
Yeah, I mean, I know some questions have come up about that. Obviously, we're also looking at the roofs. We have some preliminary solar array layouts for our buildings. So we're looking at those areas as well in our priority.
Okay, yeah, because I would like, if like we did one small area, even though it might have a slightly later date, if that gets us to be able to get a building onto solar, obviously,
Right.
we might want to move the priority of that area of a building.
And then-
If that's the only thing holding us back from solar in a particular building.
Yeah, and then I know there were some questions about structural. Normally, when you do a solar project, there is a structural review. Yeah, I mean, most of, all of our buildings have been designed to probably 30 pounds per square foot or more, because some of them are much older. So it's really just a verification that the roofs are designed as they're supposed to have been designed. And
So we could be doing that as you're working through the approval process, just to make sure we have no issues, to take a
we
look
can. I
on the
just don't-
buildings at least that you're gonna think about doing solar first.
Well, I kind of remember that the solar company has something to do with that. I
Okay.
don't know whether they hire the engineer and it's part of their responsibility and project, or
Yeah, I
whether
just want us to keep it in mind. And then I guess my last question would be, since Riverside and the Princeton Middle School don't need as much or any immediate roof work, is it something to consider, speeding up potentially when solar can go in those two schools?
Yeah, that's a thought. We can do that. We can look at that and put that as an utmost priority, I guess, being first.
Yeah, I mean, it could be that, maybe one or two of the buildings, but maybe even one next summer, just to start the process so that we can learn from it and be ready to do the other buildings. So since
Right.
those two seem to need less work, perhaps like that's something we could pursue at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
That was it for me.
I think Brian's got his hand up. Brian?
Yes. So Matt and Dave, I guess my question is about the prioritization. I understand most of the prioritization, but I think that we may want to discuss a bit about whether the 2024 roofs are first priority or second priority. And one of the reasons I asked, if you go back to the Littlebrook leak report, if that's what it is,
Mhm.
I noted that most of the leaks, a majority of the leaks, a significant majority of the leaks took place under 2024 roofs.
Water does strange things, so it's not necessarily where the source of the water is likely over most likely over the older sections, but it moves around quite a bit. And Dave, feel free to jump in. I think.
Well, I know what Brian is talking about. If we go
there.
So take a look at that though, Brian, and I think I know the art area is newer. You're right, where the art room is and the STEM lab or STEAM lab and pre-K and all that area. But I think the majority of this building, if you flip now, Mike, to the, or Matt, to the upper one, up, oh, okay, we can do it that way. But see, so there was some stuff in the pink here
Yeah,
by the library area.
and also the upper pink
Yeah.
on this slide. So I guess my question for you and ultimately the board is, if the warranties run out in 2024, and warranty does not necessarily mean that the product is no longer working, as it should. But if we were going to ask taxpayers to consider a significant investment in roofing, which is critical to keep our buildings dry, to reduce the occurrences of mold, to make sure we have a health and safe environment for our students and our teachers and our staff. If we did that in January of 2022 and work commenced in the summer of 2022, but would be phased over probably 3 to 5 years, which pushes us out to 2027. Is there not a case to be made for looking at the 2024 roofs, well, 2004 roofs, especially where there are significant issues of water penetration right now? And I understand the variability of what's failing and where water is coming in, but water is coming in at Littlebrook, and we don't have the same types of reports for the other schools. But the majority of leaks were under the 2004 roofs.
Yeah, well, I think, Matt, I know we have the majority of Littlebrook, right? I'm not sure if we threw those 2 white areas in there or not, but obviously, Brian, we're using the warranties as sort of an example of the lifespan and where we are with these roofs. Now, there are certain areas of these schools, and I would almost say at Littlebrook, that where there's been a lot of mechanical systems, installations, and traffic. Anytime you have more traffic, more people, the roof hatch is in that one area up just below the gym. And I know that anytime anybody goes through us, and we have had a lot of traffic on those roofs and a lot of construction going on. And yeah, it's right by your arrow is the roof hatch where you had it before. So this whole area is the vehicle to get us around the rest of the school. So anytime somebody comes to do a repair, HVC, roof work, and you can really see the foot traffic on that roof, if I'll just say it that way. But the library itself, I'm not certain about what happens there, but I'm not sure that's maybe the best roofing system that's installed. But we will definitely be looking at expediting where the problems are sooner. So if it says 24, even if it said 2030, we would be looking at replacing that if it was a real problematic roof. Does that sort of answer your question?
Yeah, it's just, we have different priority categories. They may be refined.
Right.
I know there's an operations committee before the next board meeting. I just share some of Dan's concern about getting everything done, do it right the first time. And I want to make sure that we're not cutting corners and going to find ourselves in 2 years saying to the public, well, we wish we had done a bit more. To me, when I look at Littlebrook, it looks like the entire roof should be replaced. When I look at the high school, it looks like a majority of the roof should be replaced. At Riverside, we seem to be in pretty good shape. And, it's kind of a mixed at the other schools. But as Dr. Galasso has said, it is just not acceptable during a storm to see our custodians putting out 50-gallon garbage buckets to collect rainwater that's penetrating through the roof.
Yeah, Matt, did you pull those 2 years in or you have partial?
No, they're not pulled in right now.
The 2024 is not in this referendum, or it is?
No, it's down at this line. It's approximately, $7 million of work. I do think it is an interesting question. Looking at that one section, at least, of that Littlebrook.
Well, we
Right,
just have to make
it might be
sure.
worth pulling in that one section of
This
Littlebrook. and just
section here.
Those
getting
two
it out
sections,
of the
yeah.
way.
That one and that one, yeah. The gym itself on the roof, there's just no activity up there. Nobody ever puts foot up there, so it's in pretty good shape.
Right, and that was cut off on this leak map. This part is the older section here.
Well, it's down here, yeah, at the
The
corner.
gym goes up here, correct?
Yeah,
Which is
yes.
cut
Yep.
off.
So I would just ask you to please
Yeah.
look again at
Absolutely.
whether it's a 2015 expiration or 2024, where we're experiencing water penetration. I think we need to make it a higher priority. And I just ask that you look at each building from that perspective one more time, so that you can share it with the operations committee and then with the full board, which may shift the numbers a bit.
Will do,
Mhm.
definitely.
Yeah, we had originally last Thursday had these numbers in the January referendum. This line was up here.
Right, so even if we don't move the whole thing, maybe there's some key aspects of it.
Right.
It also, we went through we're going through a continual, planning process, assessing our enrollments, et cetera. So there is likelihood that, we would be doing possibly some other work too. So that was kind of the part of the mindset or thought. But
I see Peter has a question.
Yeah, thank you, Beth. It's about the 2024 roofs, and it seems that it's clear that there's a significant portion of those that are not ideal, and as we get closer to that 20 years and past them, we're going to end up with more of these issues. The whole idea is to, in my opinion, to do the replacement, repairs, whatever it may be, before we get to leaks, right? The number of leaks that we have is to me astronomical. It's just, we can't have roofs like that. And the only way to make sure we don't have roofs like that is obviously maintenance, but then when it gets to that point, we replace them. And I guess I wonder, we've been talking about this, does it make sense to do it as one referendum rather than have one in 2022 and then another referendum 2 years later for the same amount? I'm not sure what the purpose of that is, especially if it's going to take us a number of years to do all the roofs, given that we have to do it over the summer primarily. So to me, it seems to make more sense, at least my initial thinking is, put those two together. We have the funding for it, and then we can prioritize and sequence it as we need, and not have to go back out for another referendum, 18 to 24 months later.
Agreed. And that was part of our initial thinking, but like I said, we're also working on the highest priority capacity issues at the high school. So that would be one mitigating factor with that. But I do agree with that theory as you're describing it. There are some economies of scale. So there are some savings with the slightly larger, if necessary, referendum. And yes, you wouldn't want to go out every 2 years, 5, 6 years, you want to, for that kind of capital maintenance type work.
I see that Debbie and Dan.
Debbie, I don't know which was first, whoever.
Debbie, you haven't asked. Have you asked yet? I think we both have asked yet, but Debbie, you go first, I guess.
No, Dan was there first.
Okay, go ahead, Dan.
So my question was, my understanding is that if we do a referendum and it's approved, we have 3 years to, execute on that, to implement that, to spend that money. So that should be a time horizon. We can't raise money and spend it in 4 or 5 years. Is that correct, Matt? We have to do it within the 3-year period.
I'm not aware of a 3-year period restraint. I'll get an answer on that. Our current contract, but I think it was based on the nature of the work with the architect, goes out 3 years, April 19 to April 22.
All right, so we need some clarity on that.
I'm not aware of any necessarily 3-year limitation where you would want to stagger some work, as I think Susan pointed out, with buildings that are in use, basically the high schools, 24, 6.5 days a week, 24 hours a day, most of the year. Abby had a question too.
Are you done, Dan?
Yes, thank you.
So I just recall from our last one, we did the vote in December, and then we had a lot of trouble finding, and we had to pay extra to get any work done, to buy equipment to get work done that summer. So the earliest you're showing us is really January for a vote. Is that true?
January 25th, yet the fourth Tuesday of this coming January.
Right. So what makes me nervous there is if it does pass for the roofs that are, should have been done in 2015, we're already behind the 8 ball again in trying to get, equipment and people and a good contractor for the summer. And so that's where I struggle because, and I'm not saying, maybe, but I struggle because this is what got us in the hole last time. And so I'm not sure if the summer of 2022 is the best time for us to do roofs. And my other, that's a comment. My other thing, to send the paperwork, do we already have all the architectural drawings for this? Because that's what took a long, long time last time.
No, you don't submit the architectural drawings with the initial
Okay.
spec letters. But it is a good point, and you reminded me, Debbie, and those very good
Thank you.
questions and good comments. Dan had kind of touched on it earlier too. A lot of our peer districts in the area have had similar experiences with HVAC. There seems to have been quite a bit of inflationary pressure on. We're not the only ones that have had significantly higher bids than planned on with different architecture firms. And so that was an area. But I would suggest, and I have lived through that before, a March referendum where the bid specs were ready to go. And in this case, I would still, we want to get the best, most competition we can for the roofing contractors. So those bid specs, and it wouldn't be lost money, even if something did go awry, because the specs would have to be done to replace the roof anyway. So those bid specs should be worked on ahead of the referendum date so that we'd be ready to go. That's the only way to really do it effectively I believe with the January, definitely March date, but March is not an advantageous date. I think going forward, as we look to planning and proper planning, if we didn't use a November date, September would be optimal.
Wait, can you scroll that up? Because I thought we couldn't get to, wait a minute.
September is the first. It's September, November. November's.
But we can't get any of our paperwork. Don't you have March?
Yeah, I'm just talking about planning for the future. I think that a September referendum date is ideal because it gives you the most time, essentially, good solid 8 months ahead of that summer. Right.
Got it.
We don't have enough time for September.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Not December is really out of the question too.
Michelle's got her hand up.
I do, thank you. My question was about flat roofs, and when I was with the township, it's a constant problem, and I guess my question is, has that ship sailed? I mean, is there any when we replace these roofs, is there a structural alteration that we can make that will lessen the impact of having a flat roof and the disadvantages of it on our buildings?
No, Michelle, that would be a huge undertaking. First of all, a different roof would add more weight to the building. So structurally, it would be a little bit of a challenge, but also every single vent pipe, every piece of mechanical equipment would have to be altered, ductwork. Right now, we've got a lot of 4-inch conduits that are feeding across those flat roofs, bringing the power to the Airedale units. All of that would have to be modified. It's to use the expression, the ship has sailed there. But, and you know, that's the whole reason we have flat roofs, is because all that stuff requires maintenance, and you have to go up there and change filters and walk around. And if something's a pitched roof, that becomes a whole nother animal if you have to try to access a machine or do something. There's all sorts of safety stuff. And so, yeah, we're kind of locked into flat roofs, but for that reason about mechanical equipment and having access to the utilities and devices that serve spaces.
Which I guess reinforces the whole maintenance question, that if you're up to date on your maintenance, then the likelihood that it's going to cause you a major problem, it's not eliminated, but I guess it's reduced. Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle.
See Jean?
Jean?
Thanks. I had two more questions since this is my first go around. If there is a delay, like Debbie described, and we miss our window to do the work in the summer, does anything happen to the funding, or do we just carry it forward to the next summer? That's my first question. Should I ask my second question or wait for that?
No, the funding doesn't go in, depending on the bond market. At certain times, it even comes close to earning excess. One of the things that the federal government has put in place is arbitrage requirements, meaning that we can't earn positive arbitrage on the money. So the feds give local state governments tax-free the ability to bond tax-free. So we actually pay professionals. I've done the calculation when I was a CPA to prove to the feds it's required that we have not earned positive arbitrage. In other words, if we earn 2.5% on our investments on a 2% bond, we have to give that money back to the feds. But depending on the environment, like right now, the short-term bond market kind of collapsed after COVID hit. We were earning nice, pretty decent returns. Possibly even coming close to that arbitrage. But go ahead with your second question if that answers the first one.
And the short answer is that if we miss our window in the summer, we could easily pick up the following summer with the work, and there wouldn't be any adverse consequences for
just the cost of delay, meaning suffering with potentially poor roof. Correct.
Okay, and so then, you know how you have to make a case that the work is necessary and not unnecessary? You talked about the slate roof example as, that might be excessive. Do we have that same issue when we talk about roofs that are still under warranty? Are they less likely to be deemed necessary, or do we have to demonstrate we have serious leaks? What do we need to do to pass muster to get the full credit?
A great question that I don't have an absolute answer to. I don't believe so, but I'm.
I mean, we're using
our professionals on that. That's
right,
a good question. I don't believe so. That's a good question. I don't believe so. I'll get an answer on that one.
I mean, usually in the design, is my mic still working?
Your mic is working.
Okay. Oh no. Usually in the design phase and stuff, and we've been in touch with Tremco Roofing as well. So the professionals are determining in many cases what the conditions are what conditions the roofs are in. So that goes up against the warranty as well. But like I said, the warranty, or like I mentioned to Matt, the warranty really in many cases covers the material itself from failure. And it's a fun thing to try to prove because they'll just tell you you've had people on a roof and you've had air conditioning work done and so forth. So
You get a lot of this, which we've gotten a lot of, and
right.
everyone points at that other person.
I just follow up on Jean's question. I think I had asked this to you after the operations committee meeting. I'm kind of wondering, if you step back and think about our role here as stewards of these buildings. And I think you said to us that typically districts, if you're really doing this right, you probably go out every 5 years to your community and say, here's the big projects that need to be done. And hopefully going forward, we're going to be able to do that on a regular cycle. But because we're playing a little bit of catch up here and haven't done it for a while, it seems to me we have a lot of leaks and a lot of real problems with our buildings. And I guess what I'm wondering about, and I was saying to you, is like, what's best practice when you're approaching the end life of a roof? Like, do districts, just as a regular thing, say, okay, we got a roof that's probably going to be, we know that it's a flat roof. We know it's got a life of 20 years or whatever. And do we gear up and then replace those things in advance so we don't have the structural damage that comes from the water leaks that, we say we're having some of it. So I'm just wondering, like, what's the right cycle for these things? And I guess I am, as Peter pointed out, if we have roofs that are, first of all, the 2024 roofs, which I was going to point out as well, the Littlebrook thing, those leaks are all over. It doesn't really matter the year on there. Those roofs are done, right? They're 2024, 2015. So, are we being, good stewards here by just doing some and then saying, well, we're going to go back to the public in 2 years or 3 years again on these things? Or should we just take care of the roofs that we know are leaking, and then also be ready for solar? Because I really would be concerned if we did a big project to the public and then we actually got detailed solar bids and they said, well, you didn't reinforce this, or you missed this piece of roof and now we can't do solar on a building. So I'm just wondering, like, what is, best practice? How are we going to be the best stewards for these buildings? And why wouldn't we do what we see coming due in the next 2 or 3 years? Because we'll get the money and then we do the roofs over the next 3 to 5 years, and then we do another one, right?
Yeah, no, I view that as how we should run the district with regards to maintaining the capital infrastructure. Absolutely. And I think that as our stakeholders become educated, as well as us, about the money we do get back from the state, I think it helps people to understand that it's pretty much the only way to go when it comes to this.
What did we spend in the last year on roof repairs just for the leaks that we have? Do you know, or do we have a sense of that? Sorry.
That's the number. No.
we haven't spent it in an exorbitant amount. We've made some good calls with some of the drains at the high school. We've been able to repair that were sources of some of those leaks, but we haven't been able to get to the at the high school, that I call it the trapezoid room that sticks out on the side of the building where the trailers are. With some of those we've isolated, as mason is truly, the roof is pretty much, it's at the end of its useful life also, but a lot of the leaks are coming from the masonry cracking across the joints.
So I guess I just would ask, when you come back to us with the prioritization, this is just my request, that you really think about what we need to do as good stewards to make sure these buildings are tight and they're going to be good going forward, because we all know, even in our own homes, we're not going to leave something that's leaking just because the warranty hasn't expired yet. And it's got a couple more years. You got to take care of it when it's the right time. So I'm just asking that when you come back to us, it's not just by the warranty year, but it's actually by what would be appropriate to make sure the building is almost.
That's yours, Beth?
Yeah, sorry.
That's okay.
Peter?
Agreed. No,
I just wanted to follow up on Beth, and I think a couple other people have focused on this too. And I don't know. I mean, I've been on the board for 2 years and change. Do we have a functional 5-year long-term facilities plan? And if not, I wonder, not wonder, but I think it's something we should have. And, these roofs obviously is one of the big ticket items. Solar is another. I mean, all these things that we want to do, we can prioritize over a longer period of time. So, excuse me. So we can plan for all of these eventualities. We know we have to repair. I mean, we have 6 buildings, none of which are new, right? They're all going to need service. They're all going to need upgrading. They're all going to need things. And if we have it in a 5-year plan that every year we update, I think to Beth's point, that will give future boards the ability to forecast what's coming, to budget properly, to prepare, to notify the public that this is coming, and it's not going to be a big surprise that in 3 more years we're going to need to do whatever the big thing is. It's going to be known, and we can plan accordingly. I think that would be, I know we talk about things in the future a little bit, but having that kind of set plan where we do a full audit of everything and prioritize it the way that you guys have started with the roofs, I think would be very helpful for the future boards in kind of planning and prioritizing what needs to be done for the facilities.
Can I just share, Peter, that's exactly how this came up. I mean, that's what we're doing in operations.
Yeah, there's nothing
That's
on
perfect.
file, which was kind of amazing when I
Right.
came on board too. So we've been battling this referendum stuff. We've been underwater with trying to get things operating. We fixed over 30 significant air conditioning systems in this district that were either not operating or operating way below standards. And COVID thrust us into having to do that. So we've been, doing air change calculations and getting equipment up and running. And we're really, we have made a huge dent. We've spent a lot of money and made a huge dent in at least getting things up to par so that they're working in current day. And I 100% agree we need a 5-year plan. We have an outline for that. We've done an extensive review of all or a good amount of the mechanical equipment that's here. Matt, I don't know if you want to bring that up at some point, but we have, much like the roofs, we have life expectancies on our chillers, our boilers, our pumps, our air handlers, our unit ventilators in the high school. We have some equipment that we know has to be replaced at this point. That's the $4.4 million line.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're definitely working for that. And that's a great point. And I know, Beth and Debbie and Pete, that you've all mentioned that, and that's what we're pushing for. And that's what got all this started, really. I mean, the roof leak started long before it, but so that's where we're headed. We definitely need a map. We need some serious guidance based on, what we need to replace and what's coming up. I mean, we're going to need new chillers someday. I have those dates in the thing. So we have some big stuff coming not in the near future, but
That second 5-year period, the high school equipment will be meeting its, close to the end of its useful life. So that's significant. 200, how many classrooms? It seems like 268, someone told me.
I think I counted 269 unit values. I mean, do you want to pull up that mechanical thing or not?
We'll do 269 univents at 20,000 a pop, adds up pretty quick.
That would be a no.
But the number, I didn't add in the, Dave, as a.
No, the spreadsheets that I did.
Yeah, the detail, it's not at the end of this. Was it at the end? No.
It's a separate one, I thought.
Yeah, we have a detailed model backing up that $4.5 million number I just looked at of each individual item. I talked about the energy audit gave us a good start, and then Dave and consulting engineer were able to plot out the useful life. We're having some at the elementary school, some of the cassette units being, I think you said 3 actually went this spring that are being replaced this summer, right? 2 or 3 that we didn't fix in June because they're being worked on right now. They started that project, direct install.
Oh, well, I mean.
That's what you told me, 3.
I mean, you want me to buzz through that slide, or I can go fast?
No, it's a spreadsheet.
Yeah.
He's basically dated all the equipment out there. A lot of it is about 17 years old. So in the next, 5 to 10 years, that equipment will need to be replaced. Air handlers.
A lot of it's being done this summer. The New Jersey Clean Energy Act is paying for a significant amount of a lot of air handlers that have gone well beyond their life expectancy. So areas like Little Brook, all the elementaries will be getting pretty much new air conditioning systems for all the nurses' rooms, their main offices. Actually, the library at Riverside, I believe, is getting a new unit, high efficiency. All these things are better efficiency. They're new. We're spending a lot of money on compressors. We've probably stopped. I think I've held off on maybe $18,000 worth of work on units that are bad, that people were saying they wanted air conditioning towards the end of school, but they're going to be replaced for far cheaper, over the summer, this summer. And, we've been able to age out all our equipment based on ASHRAE standards, how long, what the median lifetime schedule is for that. So that's a big part of.
So some of that at the high school and the middle school, we'd be looking at either a targeted, controlled ESIP, Energy Savings Improvement Plan, or the new PSC&G has a new plan coming out that would meet so the elementary schools fit into the direct install program, which pays for 80% of equipment, but it's based off the energy savings. So the lighting is where you get the energy savings, and then you use that savings to be able to implement replacement of either boilers or HVAC equipment. So that's kind of the loose game plan to help us with some of those costs at the middle school and high school going forward.
See, Dan has a question.
Sort of build on Peter's comment. Sometimes we approach these issues sort of one at a time and without context. The reason I say that is, the SLR report didn't include the element of infrastructure, roofs, capital needs, and so forth, and didn't include outdoor space. And so how do you integrate, all of those issues? And then, of course, we, have the existing referendum. So, we have these different pieces to the puzzle, but we don't have a comprehensive document because SLR did not address roofs and siding and infrastructure or outdoor spaces. There have been requests from the athletic director for some enhancements to the outdoor activities. And so it makes it more challenging, I think, as a board member, to mentally integrate and all of these different, pieces to the puzzle. Although I agree 100%, leaky roofs have to be the top of the priority list.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah, I mean, some of the things also that we need to look at are sidewalks, outdoor drainage, our fields, parking lots, the driveways, the playgrounds, and then we talked about the building exteriors and everything, the skylights in particular. Interior, we're talking about interior floors, interior ceilings, CP, the ceiling in CP is just a disaster. It's just, we need a new ceiling in there. Stairways and ramps, railings, any kind of casework, all our bathrooms, look at some of our stalls, going through all those things from a capital standpoint. And then.
You have a question, Darren?
No.
Not so much a question as a comment, which is that 2 weeks ago, Dr. Galasso, when he spoke to us and to the public, shared this as a first step, addressing the most emergent needs that we have.
Correct.
And noting that over the next year, 2 years, potentially as long as 3 years, we really need to wrap our arms around the high school, the middle school, and the elementary schools in 3 categories. Some of the ongoing needs that Dave just outlined, but also any challenges that might present themselves as our enrollment grows, and also challenges with updating aging and outdated spaces for modern 21st century pedagogy. So I agree that there's an awful lot, we're talking about and a lot to keep track of. But I do appreciate the work that the administration has done over the last 2 years to deliver, to the best of their ability, a very challenging set of referendum projects to manage the pandemic, and now to begin the process of helping us catch up, to where we need to be. And I think it's going to take a few more years, but I think this is a necessary and important step.
Yeah, I think I just want to add kind of one little maybe closing point to, I agree with what Brian just said also, but it sounds like such a logical document to have. Now, I'm not saying it doesn't exist out there for a school district, this comprehensive plan, but I'm going to, Dave and I are going to make sure that ours is, best practice. I haven't seen it, that doesn't mean it doesn't exist, but we will, we need to have a document like that, and we're going to, and it's an iterative living document that's constantly changing on an annual basis, and it'll help guide us to be able to do the things that we need to do, and then to do the others as well that we want to do, hopefully in the future. So.
Thank you, Matt. Oh, Debbie's got one more question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There was a question from the audience, and it's something I'm curious too. If we can't finish it all in the summer, how disruptive is it to do it during the school day? Because my fear again is all the timing, and could we do it in the fall? And that was something that one of the parents wrote.
Most of the work needs to be done in the summer for roofs, and it can be.
I guess the question is,
there are some inherent challenges. Well, you don't want to replace the roof with the students underneath, at least the parts of that job, and you also can't really fix roofs in the winter, generally speaking.
Okay.
Well, the kids are in the building anyway. It's summer work, the roofs, and particularly wet summer can cause problems. I mean, I don't want to sugarcoat anything. I mean, we've seen, our share of issues with work we're doing, and construction will bring it out. I mean, as
right.
anyone knows who owns a home, and it's. But yeah, significantly wet summer can cause a roof project to not be completed on time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt and Dave. I'll echo Brian's comments and just say you guys have done an amazing job over the last 2 years since you've joined us, and gone from a place where you had to pretty much start from scratch on some of this, keeping track of our maintenance need and looking at assessing our needs. And again, I guess, we're all looking for every 5-year plan, but we're not there yet. And as has been pointed out, these are emergent needs that we can maybe address now, and hopefully we'll decide what we can manage to put in there. And as Dan points out, in appropriate in 1 month, whatever you're able to do in the appropriate way and prepare for us, that would be great. And I think we will have another operations committee meeting before we see this again in the end of July, when we may be asked to do some approval, right?
We have July 21st that was scheduled, regularly scheduled July operations committee meeting.
Okay, are there any more questions from the board on this presentation tonight? And if not, I assume people can follow up with written questions that may occur to people. I know Betsy's may not be able to write her questions down or get to us right now. I think she was in some weather, so. I guess that would then, are we all ready to move on to the rest of the meeting? Again, thank you for this really, comprehensive presentation. And it's, as you point out, it's just the tip of the iceberg. You guys have massive spreadsheets behind it, and you've been doing work on this since last year, and, in the midst of the pandemic. So thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that brings us just to a public comment section of our meeting. And again, we ask that people keep their comments to 3 minutes. Please state your name and address, and remember that everyone likes to have a moment to speak. And Matt if you raise your hand, Mr. Bolden will call on you.
Molly Jones.
Good evening, everyone. I am Molly Jones, the Executive Director of Sustainable Princeton. So I just wanted to chime in and kind of strengthen the point of all this work that's being done to really affirm that it helps make your roofs solar ready. I appreciated Ms. Cantor's points about prioritizing roofs that will allow for that. One thing I hadn't heard during the program was much mention about energy efficiency. And I know during some of the previous referendum work, there was great focus put on the insulating qualities of the roofs as well. So I just wanted to reaffirm the importance of that as you're going through this process. And then Ms. Tuck-Ponder, I thought she was going in this direction, but I'm not sure if the comment that was made was taking it in this direction. And that is looking at kind of the reflectiveness of the roof. So, you know, can they be, can you look at white surfacing as some of the new roofs? Will that help? And you, Dave, obviously are a much better expert at this than many of us. On the solar, real quick, I just want to remind everyone here that I think the earliest estimates are that panels on the roofs throughout the schools could potentially generate up to 40% of the demand for the buildings. There are some changes going on in the energy credit market. Actually, there's an upcoming Board of Public Utilities meeting, which will help inform the financial viability of your projects. So we'll stay on top of that for you, but it's looking like best guess is that you could come in at a kind of a 10 to 15% financial takeaway from a PPA type situation. So that's kind of the current estimates. In prior years, it was higher than that. But just want to note, and that is a best guess that hasn't been set in stone. So just wanted to make sure you all have kind of at top of mind the financial potential for a solar array and how that could help the schools in the long term. So thanks so much for your good work on this.
Thank you,
Molly.
Does anyone else in the public have any questions? I don't see any. No other questions at this time.
Okay, then that takes us on to item E1 on our agenda. And I note it is marked as a consent, but I think it's actually, we don't have a consent vote at the end, Matt. So maybe it's just an action item.
Well, we had two items. We had added on just an approval of the annual review that the board has given to our superintendent for this year.
Okay.
Again, there are two items on the vote.
I got it. Okay, so the first item is the administrator's contracts which have been approved by the county and are for the next year. And is there any question on that? It's a consent item. And if not, the second item is simply to ratify the performance report for our superintendent that is required by CUSAC, our interim superintendent, which we discussed in a summary conference on June 15th. And if there is no questions on either of these items, then I would ask for a motion for a vote to approve both of these items via consent. Brian, a second?
I'll second. It's Michelle.
Michelle, thank you. Any further discussion?
Can I say just one comment?
Yes.
As this is the last time we'll see Dr. Galasso in public, I would just like to thank him. Although as I don't know if this is symbolic, he's getting darker and darker as the night goes along. But I just want to publicly thank him for everything he's done for our district, for our kids, and for our schools. He was here for 1 year, but it really felt like he did the work of 10 years. And things he's done publicly, things he's done behind the scenes, the way he's worked with our board. I just want to thank you very much for everything that you've done. I appreciate it. I know the board appreciates it, and the schools and the district will be better because you were here for this year. And I just wanted to thank you for that.
Thank you, Peter. And the entire board has been terrific. Great working partners with me. I can't thank the administrative team, all the people at Valley Road, our teachers and faculty and staff. And I said 100 times, you have amazing kids in Princeton. They're really, really amazing. And I think the work that you're now doing with facilities, and this board is engaged. I think you're going to catch up real quick. And I just wish Dr. Kelly the best. I know she'll do an outstanding job, and the community will be better for having her. So thank you all for being so kind to me.
Thank you, Dr. Galasso. All right, I think we're ready to vote.
Beth Barron,
Yes.
Debbie Bronfeld,
Yes.
Dan Dart,
Yes.
Betsy Baglio,
Yes.
Brian McDonald,
Yes.
Michelle Tuck Ponder,
Yes.
Peter Katz,
Yes.
Susan Cantor,
Yes.
Jean Durbin.
Yes.
Consent agenda passed.
Agenda passed. Again, thank you, Peter. I think you've summed it up for us. Dr. Galasso, this is the last time we'll have you. for
One
an
more
evening.
meeting tomorrow. We can
Wait a minute,
get
you're
one
not
in.
going to call the meeting for tomorrow, are you?
I don't know that we
I
can.
advertised for that, Barry.
Oh, okay.
Just in case.
We just
Thank
You can
God
keep
for-
this one going all night if you want to get to tomorrow.
Didn't take tomorrow. I like it.
So thank you so much, Dr. Galasso. Thank you, Matt and Dave, for the presentation tonight. And can I have a motion to adjourn? Jean, second, Peter. All those in favor? All right, motion passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matt and Dave.
We are
Thank you.
adjourned.
Thank you all.
Good night, everybody.
Thank you so much, guys. Appreciate it. Thank you, Barry.
All right, take
Bye.
care, everyone.
Take care, Barry. Be well.
Bye.
Safe. Take care.
You too, Barry.